And the moderator is my dear colleague, Dr. Hai Ho, Associate Professor of Engineering, now at Kennesaw State University. So Dr. Ho is an Associate Professor of Electrical Engineering at the Southern Polytechnic College of Engineering and Engineering Technology. He's also one of the SAUPO Vice Chairs. He has diverse experience in academia and various industries, including hard disk drive, RFID, aerospace, robotics, and consumer electronics. He was formerly the Vice President of Research and Development at New World Rubbermaid and HID Global. He holds 17 patents. At KSU, he is currently establishing a Center for Product Development and Innovation while exploring partnership opportunities with industries. Lastly, he is an active member of the community where he currently serves as board chairman of UVAC, which stands for United Vietnamese American Community of Georgia. I would like to welcome Dr. Hai Ho to introduce the 4 outstanding speakers. Please help me to welcome Dr. Hai Ho.
Thank you very much, May. Good afternoon. I have the pleasure of speaking or moderating a topic that is very exciting. I think technology and innovation is a topic that's relevant to every single business here. Innovation is what makes the world go round, right? In fact, innovation and technology is changing rapidly the way we live, the way we work, and the way we play. And let me start out to make the topic as relevant to most of us as possible. Let me start out with a world event example and ask you the question. All of you have heard of the Segway, right? Yes? Okay. Now, how many of you have heard of the hoverboard? Okay. How many of you own one? You own one. Okay. Did it catch on fire? All right, so Justin Bieber and Jamie Foxx and celebrities have recently made the hoverboard, which is a new technology innovation that affect the way we play. But I want to use that as an example of how the dynamics of technology and innovation in US and in China. So what happened is that a couple months ago, the hoverboard became so popularized in the US that it got flooded. Amazon was selling them like hotcakes, and everybody were buying hoverboards. Hoverboards are these two-wheeler things that you step on and you move around, right? The technology in there are gyroscopes, control systems, and advanced motors, and lithium batteries, and so forth. And everybody enjoyed, almost every kid wanted to have one. Amazon was not selling them enough. And China, due to its powerful manufacturing capability, were pumping them out, okay? But unfortunately, at some point, there were incidents of hoverboards catching on fire. So what that meant was that became a safety issue and also a issue or a perception of quality of products that are coming from overseas, hence one of the dynamics there. So the first thing we see is that technology was affecting the way we live and play, and secondly, the dynamics of manufacturing so fast, so many, so much, that quality was compromised, okay? And then the third thing that came about this whole incident was that lawsuits start to spur around. One in particular was by Segway. Segway launched a lawsuit out against these companies in China that infringing on its patents. One of these companies, called Ninebot, was a big company, had deep pockets, okay? So guess what they did? They went and bought Segway, okay? So what that means is that the dynamics of companies in China with deep pockets and their ability and interest in buying technologies and investing in the US. Now some of that is good, some of it may be questionable, but I think the gentleman earlier mentioned that there is sensitivity around issues of the broader, bigger scope of foreign investment in technology. So anyway, imagine that your next generation of smartphone, which I think all of you have one of these, right? Imagine if this phone, the next generation, can be charged in a split second. and it will last not only for hours, but will last for days. So ladies and gentlemen, that's nanotechnology around the corner. Very soon you will see supercapacitor graphene battery that will give you that capability. In fact, technology is changing so fast that we're seeing autonomous robots, we're seeing augmented reality, we're seeing Internet of Things, and we're seeing all kinds of stuff, big data that are coming, that are going to hit us. So today, our guest speakers are going to speak to some aspects of technologies and innovation and how it pertains to Asia and USA. Asia and US are two of the top very active regions in the world when it comes to technology and innovation. In fact, according to Bloomberg Company, the top 4 patent holders are South Korea, Japan, China, and the US. Therefore, it is very fitting for SAUPO to cover this topic. And without further ado, let me introduce you to the first speaker. Our first speaker is President and CEO of Murata Electronics North America. Murata is a multinational, multi-million-dollar corporation that is headquartered in Kyoto, Japan. It is a leading company involved in manufacturing of ceramic electronic components with an overwhelming share worldwide in ceramic filters, high-frequency parts, and sensors. These are components that you find in your everyday home electronics, cars, and computers. Our guest graduated from Clemson University with an electrical engineering degree. He was an Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year finalist in 2010. He became president and CEO in 2011. He has been a SAUPO sponsor and guest for at least 2 years now that I have been with SAUPO. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. David Kirk.
Really appreciate the opportunity to actually be here and speak this morning. So thank you for the introduction. And let me maybe tell you a little bit more about Murata to give you that backdrop. So I started with Murata out of university. And at one point in the early 90s, I was handling the major product category that we had, which was called capacitors, ceramic capacitors. World's leading ceramic capacitor company. It was about 80% of our business. And I was handling that product. It was being manufactured at that time in Pennsylvania. And we were making a couple of 100 million pieces per month. And we were thinking, well, I think we can sell 1 billion a month. So let's gear up manufacturing for 1 billion pieces a month. And that's the kind of innovation and technology and driving that production that we had. Today, we actually make 100 billion pieces per month, okay? In the early 90s, that capacitor product was about 80 to 85% of our business. It's now, as I said, 100 billion pieces per month, but it's only 30% of our business. So that gives you some idea that we had an idea, we had a strategy, obviously grow that business significantly, but diversification was very, very key. So just wanted to give you that backdrop. Murata also grew very, very significantly, and these are sort of just rough numbers, but to give you an idea, we'll be approximately 1.2 trillion yen this year. Ballpark US to 100 yen to the dollar, that's about a $12 billion company. About 20% growth in the last several years on an annual basis, so very, very significant. So what I wanted to do, though, was step back a little bit and innovation, technology, give you some of those numbers there, but it actually started way back. The original founder of the company, Mr. Murata, we're now on his 3rd son, he wrote our company philosophy. It's called Shazé. In the Shazé, it's very interesting as you listen to some of the conversations this morning, the panels. Trust, being trustworthy is right there in our Shazé. It was translated in 1954 into English. Also in there is innovation, new technology, bringing new products to the market. So that philosophy from the original founder through his son is very, very significant. In the early 90s, we actually changed our logo. It was red in some parts of the world, it was blue. In other parts of the world, it became red. We also had a slogan, Innovator in Electronics. And very, very important, mindset change. Also, I think some of the previous slides showed about Japan and how Japan was very, and I can't remember the exact word right now, but very closed. It was maybe mentioned in one of the other presentations. So I am the first non-Japanese president of the Murata Americas. We have a non-Japanese president in Europe. And that was part of that globalization and innovation in the organization. So very, very important. But with that, not only is the change of the people, is also then a whole, technology and innovation program. And it's not just let's develop some new products and so on and so forth. We actually go all the way back, and I was having some conversations at the break during my appropriate networking. We go all the way back into universities. So we actually have Murata people in universities. We obviously fund some specific, technologies, but we have people at MIT, we have people at Penn State, we're working with Georgia Tech, we're working with Colorado State, a lot of different universities. So it goes all the way back into there. We then have people that are actually involved in venture capital funds. We put money in some funds. We actually put people in those funds. We continue that where we will in fact even make potentially some investments into companies. Recently we made I think it was about a $10 or $12 million investment in a Boston company, and obviously want to understand that technology. It happens to be power, as was just mentioned there, wireless charging. Can you actually just sit your phone down, don't plug it in, it actually just charges wirelessly, charge your car wirelessly. So a lot of those types of things. We also actually have made multiple acquisitions. I think, haven't made any so far this year, but we've probably made 5 or 6 in the last few years here in the United States. So I think the comment and the point really is that it's not just one thing you can do to actually have technology and innovation. It's a very diverse program. It's a global program going all the way back into academia, all the way through into startup companies, funding, and even some M&A activities. So very, very key. Wanted to just really kind of point out that the time expectations are very important. So with Mr. Murata, as an example, the expectations are not instantaneous. Obviously, when you're talking about a technology that's back in a university, it's many, many years, maybe 10, maybe 12 years before that actually materializes into some kind of product. So you have to have that patience, that's understanding. I think in some of the discussions, it was very interesting. There was conversations about how you understand the multicultural aspect. In Japan, or dealing with Japan, I actually call the 4 Ps. And in many people's case, they may think, well, that's the 4 Ps of marketing. And actually, in our organization, it's not. It's actually patience, passion, patience, passion. And you have to have patience. It takes a long time. You think maybe nothing is happening, and then suddenly, bang, it happens. And so you have to understand that culture, and that's some of the internal training that we actually do to understand that. But we call that internally our 4 Ps. Executive management buy-in, that long-term success is very, very critical. So those are some of the background and the things that we actually do as far as technology and innovation on a global basis. The key point of all of that technology and innovation, though, is how are you going to drive the company and that innovation to actually drive the company forward? So our strategy for all of this activity that we do is actually new products, and how we measure it is new product revenue. So of our, let's just say 1.2 trillion, $12 billion, our goal is 40% of that revenue will be from new products. New products are products that are released in the last 3 years. If you look at our annual report, we've basically gone from 8 billion, 10 billion, 12 billion in the last 3 years. That is the benchmark. That is what we are actually shooting for. And that's ultimately why we are doing the technology and innovation activities that we do. So it has to be a long, involved program, but that's the ultimate result. And obviously, if you've got 40% of this year's revenue coming from new products, you've got a very healthy pipeline for that. So with that, I will actually close. I think I had 5 or 7 minutes. Hopefully I haven't gone over that, giving you some idea of what technology is within Murata. It was mentioned was the Japan Fest. Last year at the Japan Fest, we actually demonstrated a robot. It is a Murata boy that rides a bicycle, a robot that rides a bicycle. The bicycle stands freely, it stays upright, it can go forward, backwards, it can do all kinds of things controlled. The point of that is to show our various technologies and capabilities, from gyros, sensors, wireless connectivity. This year we actually launched Murata cheerleaders. Go to our website and see the cheerleaders. It's 10 dancing robots. Okay? They balance on a steel ball. They move in sequence, they dance, they change colors, they do all kinds of different things. We're obviously not in the market to sell robots, okay? We're in the market to try and explain to you our technology, and just imagine those are 10 cars, okay? They move together, they don't ever bump into each other, they know where each other actually is, they can go faster, slower, sideways, all kinds of things. Autonomous driving, those types of things are where we're actually trying to make people think of that technology and innovation. So with that, I'll close and look forward to some questions and answers at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Wow, Android cheerleaders. That's the first time I've heard of that. Amazing. Also, if you haven't noticed that all of our panel guests come from companies that are very well known, and they're in the multi-billion-dollar ranges. So they're all powerhouses of tech companies out there. So our second speaker is the Director of Services Strategy, Offerings, and Alliances at IBM Security. IBM needs no introduction, but I'll tell you a little bit about it anyway. It is a global technology and innovation company headquartered in Armonk, New York. It is the largest technology and consulting employer in the world, with more than 400,000 employees serving clients in 170 countries. IBM invests more than $6 billion a year in R&D, and just completed its 22nd year of patent leadership. That means the most patents generated. Our guest has more than 20 years in the IT software and services industry, working with enterprises, governments, and institutions around the world, designing, deploying, and managing their security programs and implementing modernized solutions to address evolving security threats. He is a frequent speaker at security shows and advisor to C-level executives in corporations around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. John Willard.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you to May and the entire team for inviting me to speak here with you today. And on behalf of IBM, we are pleased to have this opportunity. Let me start by reinforcing some of the points that were made on the previous panel that we just enjoyed, and that is that IBM strongly supports the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which is extremely relevant to the conversations that we're having here today. As a company that operates in 170 countries and a world that's moving to a digital economy, that the TPP is critically important to allow this free flow of data and to allow what we believe a 21st century economy is going to require in order to be successful. And you may or may not realize how significant that is. As we look at 2015, of the $710 billion of services exports that left the United States, 60% of those were digitally delivered. And $88 billion of what was delivered to TPP countries. So it is of significance to IBM. It's significant to large manufacturing and to the future of technology and innovation. So with that, I ask at least to ensure that you are taking personal interest and understand what TPP is, and that as corporations, we support that and allow the continued free trade, which again is important to what we do here today. Let me shift to talk a bit about IBM and where we're headed. So at IBM, our focus, all the R&D that we are doing, what we see happening in the economy, the digital economy, is a shift towards an era of cognitive business. And it fits very much into the discussions around an evolution towards social media. And it fits very much in the conversation around what's happening with the Internet of Things. And some of you may or may not realize that IBM acquired a company called the Weather Channel, the Weather Company. And for many, even within IBM, there was an initial reaction of, why on earth would IBM acquire the Weather Company? It's very simple. The Weather Company has a vastly deployed network of sensors all over the world, in every industry, transportation, airports, et cetera, to monitor the weather. And that generates a treasure trove of data that can be used for predictive analytics, for us to be able to do sentiment analytics, and to better understand how weather patterns affect the economy, affect buying behaviors, and affect different parts of the world for forecasting and prediction. And that is a good segue to really what we are seeing at a C-level executives. C-level executives are absolutely interested in understanding how they can leverage the shift towards the digital economy and cognitive business to grow and personalize what they deliver to their clients. And what we see is this growing shift towards wanting to really think of your customers as individuals and personalize those experiences. And to be able to do that, you need to have the ability to have a sense of real-time feedback as to what is happening. And so areas of investment in cognitive computing, in machine learning, in Watson, and I hope all of you have enjoyed the Watson commercials and had a chance to see them, give us this ability to be able to mine and analyze billions of pieces of information at any given time. And that will continue to grow and grow as we create data at an unprecedented rate. So what does that allow us to do? Some great questions earlier around social media. Well, what many companies struggle with was they try to drive a more traditional brand. IBM is over 100 years old. And so to connect our brand to millennials means we also need to understand what millennials perceive of the IBM brand. And to get that perception of the brand means we have to be listening. And listening does not always have to be in the form of audible listening. It can be in the form of listening through machine language and learning, listening to the feedback that we see for Twitter, over Facebook, over Instagram. Real-time social media is the current way in which millennials provide and give us that feedback. And so the analytics is a capability there, and that's what we help companies do. We help companies to anticipate the future, where they need to have their products and goods, to personalize those experiences through cognitive computing, machine learning, and to improve the ability to be able to service their customers, whether that is in banking, healthcare, travel or transportation, hospitality, any industry, there's applicability. And that is really our goal. So that shift is becoming more and more important each day. And what we're seeing with that shift is not just about enablement. We've been doing that with technology and innovation for years, but a shift towards being able to be a better advisor and to have your brand as a company and IBM's brand to be associated with being one of the best advisors that we can. And in healthcare, this is incredibly important. Right, so healthcare, even in the most developed parts of the world or the least developed parts of the world, the ability for a doctor to be able to quickly, in human language, ask questions based on a diagnosis of a patient and tap into the entire history of medical journals and doctoral capability is extensive. So do we expect Watson to perform a surgery? No, we do not. But we certainly expect that a doctor can much more accurately diagnose within a small percentage of difference in a very, very quick fashion, an accurate diagnosis and help a patient, and do that in any part of the world. And those are the game-changing things that we believe are important. So when we help a business, when we talk about their ability to embrace in a cognitive journey, we really try to keep it into 5 simple things. And the first part of it is to have them really understand what is cognition and what does that a cognitive strategy mean. And I gave you some of those examples here. To understand the data that they're already creating and the data they could be creating and how to analyze that data to have a much better sense of what is really happening in their company and what is happening with the behavioral patterns for those that interact with their brand on a daily basis. How to shift workloads and optimize them in the cloud. And as we see cloud computing, it allows us to move at a much more agile and rapid pace to be able to adopt technology and innovation and to be able to adjust, sense, and respond based on what we see happening in the world and with our clients, and to drive a more mobile experience. And that mobile experience is creating a personal experience, which is incredibly important. So back to that point on personalization, these mobile devices that we all carry in our hands, each one of our brands can be personalized right to that individual based on the fact that they are carrying that mobile device. So let me bring this together, and I guess one last thing here. You mentioned our leadership in patents. I'm going to have to correct you on one thing. It's 23 years, not 22. Last year, we generated over 7,000 patents, and we have about 8,000 inventors within IBM. So it is critically important that we continue to innovate, but also you can see a company the size of IBM with as much as we have at stake, 23 years of patent leadership, that we believe in something as important as a Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, knowing that we're confident that we can innovate and protect our intellectual property and at the same time allow the digital economy to move on. So I have to make that plug. So let me bring this quickly to what does this mean for SAUPO, for what we're here for. There is a tremendous opportunity between Asia-US partnerships to be able to go across any industry. And every industry is generating data, and every industry has an opportunity to capitalize and bring an improved experience to your clients, improve how your company is operating through this ability of capitalizing on big data analytics and cognition. And I've put some examples in here, and they're very simple, right? So transportation, back to my point on the acquisition of the Weather Channel, our ability to be able to predict client sentiment with weather behavioral patterns, with the need to have extra staff ready to go at a hotel, extra staff ready to go at an airport, taxis in line because we expect a winter blizzard to come through, shut down the airport, cancel flights, and there'll be need for more travel and transportation, right? Simple example. But those are the types of things that make a difference in how you would have experienced an airport, an airline, a hotel chain, right? So those are what we were doing to be able to change the outlook and to be able to create opportunity for joint business. So I'll close here, and my last point is really the key thing that we think about in IBM, and our mantra is think, quite simple, think. And what we think about each and every day is how to be able to use the power of data analytics and cognition to differentiate your brand, IBM's brand, and make a difference. So we're trying to think about what the opportunities are. Your goal is to outthink your competitors, and I think there's an opportunity with companies between Asia, US, to be able to do very impactful things just like I described. So thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here, and hi, I'm going to hand it back to you.